Top of the hour, and the breaking news is big in this unprecedented campaign. This season, the likes of which we have never seen before. We have one more major development. Vice President Kamala Harris, the presumptive Democratic nominee now for President of the United States, has selected Minnesota Governor Tim Walz to be her running mate. A week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, maybe seen as a dark horse. Now he has emerged as the choice. Our MJ Lee, Jeff Zeleny, John King, Jamie Gangel, all reporting on this. MJ just saying maybe Walz, a vibes pick, seen as a Midwestern happy warrior. John King is here with us in New York, watching this unfold before our eyes. Let's just start, reset at the top of the hour, what Tim Walz means for this ticket now.
It means, number one, the Democrats have their ticket. They're about to go into their convention, and after Kamala Harris clinched the nomination with the most unorthodox nominating process of our lifetime, the President of the United States steps aside after winning the primaries. She wins a virtual voting among the delegates, and then she wants to make this decision. She wants all this cleaned up before they get to Chicago for the convention, so that can all be about prosecuting the case against Donald Trump and J.D. Vance and against the Republicans. So a very truncated process, a lot of pressure on the vice president. So as the voters out there get to judge, how she's handling this first big executive decision. So why Tim Walz? We're showing pictures of him right there in a jacket and a shirt with no tie on. Earlier we had pictures of him in a T-shirt. I do think the contrast here is going to be striking. This is a small-town Midwesterner. This is a man who won a Republican House seat and held it. In very difficult years for Democrats, he held on to it. So he has that small-town rural appeal, which is why did Donald Trump pick J.D. Vance? Sort of the same idea. Can you go into small communities and make the case? He's the chairman of the Democratic Governors Association. I can tell you his fellow Democratic governors love him, love him. They think he's smart. They think he builds consensus. They think he's really funny. And so they like being in his company. And that matters in a campaign. In terms of Harris being out, are you confident that do you have the loyalty and do you trust your partner out there in the campaign trail? Does that person at tense moments, and there will be a lot of tense moments in the next 90 days of this campaign, make you laugh and make you smile and maybe take some of the pressure off you? Can you do the small market television? Walz fits that bill. Now, we're going to see how he plays out. And again, I'll be a broken record on this. There is no data in the 37 years I've been doing this that says your vice presidential pick makes the difference in the end. However, it can hurt you. We could have a conversation about has Vance hurt Trump, or at least stalled Trump's momentum a little bit there. And it can help you in the idea that, again, popular with governors, that helps you raise money. Popular with governors, that helps get more people on the team. Popular in small-town America, create a little buzz for Democrats in places maybe where they're not always seen. And that is one of the Democratic Party's problems. In the years I've been doing this, Michael Dukakis was my first campaign, 1988. He won 10 states.
Massachusetts miracle.
Yeah, Iowa and West Virginia were states won by Michael Dukakis in 1988. Those who are blue-collar Democrats who worked with their hands on farms or in coal mines or in factories. The Democrats have lost those votes. Tim Walz knows how to win those votes. Again, the presidential candidate decides who wins the election. But a vice presidential candidate can help a little bit, and she's made a governing choice here too. A progressive governor who was in the military, in the House, then elected statewide and re-elected statewide. So you have governing experience here, again, in a different mix, a Midwestern mix. She's a West Coast politician. So it's an interesting combination. Politics, I always call it a casserole, right? You're bringing all these ingredients together and trying to make them work. The last thing I'll say is, in my travels over the last year, one of the issues is people are so disillusioned with politics. That's why you have so-called double haters, people who don't like Trump and don't like Biden. Well, now President Biden's out of the race. So that gives the Democrats an opportunity. They have this opportunity to shake up the race, to get people to look again. So somebody who's a little different, a little unorthodox. Kamala Harris is different. She's a woman of color, right? So she's different in her own right. Now to bring somebody else different into the mix when you're trying to get another look, it's an interesting pick.
And you mentioned him being a happy warrior. That's not something that you always hear in politics. There's been a lot of people who have been really, really annoyed, pissed off is probably the best word you could use at the candidates recently, using very dark language, et cetera, et cetera. He's not that guy.
No, he makes the case against Trump and Trumpism with a smile. And he says make it, he urges people to make it with a smile. And he urges people to say, don't demonize the voters. Don't demonize the people with whom you disagree. Try to have a conversation with them. Try to win them over with your own arguments and with your own details, not by saying you're a moron or you're an idiot or go away, I don't want to listen to you. Try to find out how they got there.
Minnesota nice.
What is the source of their disillusionment and their disaffection? Not just push them away because they disagree with you.
Yeah. Let's go to Jeff Zeleny now. Jeff, there is this question about what the relationship was before all this. How much did Kamala Harris know Tim Walz or have ever sort of talked to and had conversations with Tim Walz before the dark horse became the pick?
Sarah, I'm told not much. They did not have much of a relationship. But another source just a moment ago pointed me back to a visit that Vice President Harris took to the Twin Cities in Minnesota in March. And she visited a Planned Parenthood clinic. Of course, she has been the leading champion on the, at the time, Biden-Harris campaign for abortion rights. And that has been one of the really anthems of her candidacy. And Governor Walz was at this Planned Parenthood clinic. It's the first time a sitting vice president has visited such a clinic. And I'm told that she walked away impressed by his demeanor, how he carried himself, and she liked him, but did not know much about him. And of course, at the time, this would have been unthinkable. Just 16 days ago, she was the running mate. She was not looking for her own running mate. So that is what is remarkable about this. But really, in the last 2 weeks, Governor Walz went from a third-tier contender in the views of someone who's close to him to one of the top three. And they believe that was largely because of what he was doing sort of very publicly. He was doing every interview he could do, trying to make the case to some Democrats and make the case why he is the type and flavor of Democrat that could help win voters back. If you think back to, and excuse me for that interruption, if you think back to sort of the Democratic Party, how it was not that long ago when Barack Obama won in 2008 and 2012, they won a lot of areas that are now red. John was just talking about many of those areas. Governor Walz is someone they believe who can help sort of win back these areas. There, of course, are limitations to this. Vice President Harris is at the top of the ticket. She is the standard bearer. So we will see in the coming days how much he can sort of give some calm and relief to some voters who are unsure about this. But the contrast is something I'm told the Harris campaign very much liked, and the chemistry is something that she also liked in the final days of this search. Guys?
Not a lawyer. Tim Walz also not a lawyer, which is unusual, right? I guess Al Gore wasn't a lawyer. I mean, it's not often. Social studies here. You don't often see, politicians at this point who haven't had experience in the law, especially on the Democratic side. Let's go to MJ Lee for more reporting on how we got to this point. MJ, what are you hearing now?
Yeah, John, I do think we should just take an extra beat to take stock of really the really remarkable and extraordinary series of events that led us to this moment. It was 16 days ago that President Joe Biden dropped out of the 2024 race. And as you've been talking about, Vice President Harris was able to lock up this nomination so quickly, but so much so that there was not even at any point even a blip of a real conversation within the Democratic Party about whether they should consider anybody else other than Kamala Harris. And now we have not only Kamala Harris at the top of the ticket, but within a matter of days, she has deliberated on and chosen the running mate of her choice. And it is now going to be the Harris-Walz ticket running against the Trump-Vance ticket. So we have seen such a remarkable and unprecedented transformation of the Democratic ticket in just, again, a matter of days. And I do think we should note that this moment really marks, in some ways, Kamala Harris defying President Biden. As we have talked about so much for years and years, President Biden and the advisors that are closest to him have made the argument repeatedly that the person at the top of the ticket had to be Joe Biden, that only he was capable of defeating Donald Trump, that with anybody else, the country really risked a second-term Trump presidency. And in that, they were at least implicitly suggesting that the Democratic bench of talent was inadequate. But now here we have Kamala Harris at the top of the ticket, now Tim Walz right there below her, and the two of them certainly do now represent sort of the future of the Democratic Party in a way that we would not have seen had Joe Biden remained at the top of the ticket. Now, One thing I will say, as we are now talking about this ticket facing up against President Trump and J.D. Vance on the other side of the aisle, I do think there's something to be said for the way that Walz has conducted himself in the last several weeks or so, as he has made the case effectively, a lot of Democrats would say, against Trump and Vance. You know, he is the guy that made the weird messaging really take hold as he described the Republicans on the other side of the aisle as those weird guys. That has been a really politically effective messaging, and he has clearly shown, whether he was intentionally auditioning for this job or not, that he can be that effective messenger for Kamala Harris and the Democratic Party. So all of these things would have gone into that decision-making process. I know that we were talking about this a little bit in the last hour, but I do think sort of that vibes decision, how much that factored into things, just the idea that this is somebody that she would have had good personal chemistry with, that he is widely described as somebody that people just enjoy spending time with.